to welcome everyone to the Henry County Zoning Advisory Board meeting tonight, July 11th, 2024. I would like to advise all that this meeting is being broadcast live on Spectrum Channel 180 and on the Henry County website. For anyone wishing to speak tonight, a total of 10 minutes will be allowed for anyone in favor, including the applicant, and 10 minutes for anyone in opposition of an agenda item. For example, if 10 people wish to speak, they must share the 10-minute slot. For associated cases, a total of 20 minutes will be allotted for anyone in favor, including the applicant, and 20 minutes for anyone in opposition. We will now hear the pledge and invocation by Mrs. Randolph.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming today. Hopefully, everybody got here safely and will exit safely. As we go through our proceedings this afternoon, we do have rules and regulations that allow everybody time, as Mr. Nelson said, that we can make sure that we are hearing everyone accurately. So we thank you all so much for coming today. And we want to take this time to pledge allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America, and to which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all.
Yes. Can I get a motion to accept the agenda?
Make a motion.
Okay, can I get a second? I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Motion carries. Okay. Staff, any comments tonight?
No, sir, no comments.
Okay. All right. If there's no comments, I will call the first case.
RZ 24-02 Templar Development Group, LLC of Fayetteville, Georgia, requests a rezoning from R2 Single Family Residence to R5 Single Family Residence for property located at 3435 Jonesboro Road in land lots 105 and 120 of the 6th District. The property consists of 57.26 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a single-family cluster home development. District 5, presented by Taylor Solomon, Planner 3.
Good evening, Chair, board members, and citizens of Norman County.
Good evening.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Good evening, Chair, board members, and citizens of Henry County. The rezoning request before you is for property located at 3435 Jonesboro Road, on the corner of Jonesboro Road and Dutchtown Road. The property is currently zoned R2, single-family residence, and the applicant is requesting a rezoning to R5, single-family residence for a detached cluster home development. The subject property is highlighted in green on the map before you all this evening. The subject property is currently zoned R2, single-family residence. The area in the immediate vicinity of the property consists of residential areas such as R3, single-family residence, and RA, residential agricultural lots. The future land use designation of the property is medium-density residential. The slide before you shows the input we've received from various departments regarding infrastructure and public safety. The details of each department's comments can be found in your exhibit books. This slide shows the boundary survey of the property provided by the applicant. And this slide shows the latest concept plan received by staff. The property would appear to be developable as presented. The site plan is conceptual in nature and will need to meet all of the development standards at the time of permitting. Before you are the next few slides are 8 elevations provided by the applicant for the proposed development. The subject property is zoned R2 sewer, single-family residence, as illustrated on Henry County's official zoning map. On November 13, 2014, the Henry County Board of Commissioners denied the applicant's rezoning request from RA, residential agricultural, to R3, single-family residential. but alternatively approved R2 single-family residence with conditions. The applicant is requesting a rezoning of 57.26 plus or minus acres to R2 sewer single-family residence to R5 single-family residence for a single-family cluster home development. The conceptual plan proposed the development will consist of 150 fee simple lots with a density of 4.0 dwelling units per acre net. The applicant is proposing a minimum lot size of 4,750 square feet with an average lot size of 900 square feet. The future land use map designation for the property is medium density residential and will support the rezoning request to R5. The subject property is within the limits of the Highway Corridor Overlay District and will be required to meet the standards therein. They will also need to meet the horizontal multifamily standards therein as well. Staff recommends approval of the rezoning from R2 single-family residence to R5 single-family residence with the following conditions. Staff has since added an additional condition highlighted in red, condition 19, which states the property shall maintain a minimum 20-foot undisturbed and/or enhanced landscape buffer as illustrated in the approved conceptual plan along the perimeter of the subject property, meeting approval of staff prior to the issuance of all development permits. Thank you for your time this evening, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, does the board have questions for staff?
Yes, I do. Just one question.
Okay,
It's two-part.
Ms. Richardson.
Has the Board of Education and the Water Authority given their approval? I think you mentioned that.
Yes.
Okay.
Any additional questions for staff? Okay, if not, we'd
Thank
like
you.
the applicant to come forward. Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Evening, Chair,
Good evening.
members, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening, Chair, members of the board. My name is Steve Moore with Moore Bass Consulting, 1350 Keys Ferry Court, McDonough, Georgia. Here tonight representing Templar Development in this proposed rezoning request. There we go. So the subject property is, as you know, located on the south side of Jonesboro Road, just west of Dutchtown Road, approximately 57 acres of land, and basically covers the entire intersection of those two roads. As Taylor mentioned, the property is designated as 4 units to the acre on the future land use map, which is what we're requesting tonight. There is medium density residential, as you can see, that pretty well surrounds the site on the west side, and then on the north and east side is high density residential. So we felt like we were appropriately fitted inside of those two land use districts. The property has a very large home on it currently that is unoccupied, and a couple of lakes and some paved walking trails that feature, that kind of surround that lake right there. There's also a heavily vegetated buffer along the common property line with the traditions of Crystal Lake, which we intend to keep as buffers. Our request, as she mentioned, is to request from R2 to R5 for 150 lot, single-family residential development that would be an owner-occupied community consisting of 1- and 2-story homes. The lots are proposed to be 45-foot wide minimum at 4,750 square feet, which is allowed in the cluster housing provisions under the R5 district. We felt like this offered a good variety to the area. There's a lot of very similarly sized homes, similarly sized lots in this area, both north, south, east, and west, and we felt like this was a good kind of just a change of pace and variety for our customers. The expectation for this community is to be a multi-generational community. We feel like with the size of the lots and the types of homes, they're going to be very suitable for whether it's a young professional that is looking for their first house or an empty nester that's looking for their last house, and they're just ready to have something that's lower maintenance, lower responsibility. So we felt like it was a good plan for that. The primary access to the subdivision is proposed off of Jonesboro Road to align with Canal Street, which is at the gates at Pates Lake, immediately across the street. This will be a large boulevard style entrance with hardscape fencing and signage that would be consistent with the wrought iron, that would be consistent with what's up and down Jonesboro Road in its current situation. We also have two accesses that would propose to connect to Dutchtown Road. So as I mentioned earlier, there is, as far as amenities are concerned, there's a beautiful lake that's on the property now. As part of our proposal, we're going to add a water feature to that lake, similar to what's shown here, maintain the existing paved trails that circle the lake, add some street furniture. We've also proposed 2 pickleball courts and a pavilion and a playground that would be right there at the beginning of that lake to serve the residents. The site plan has also been developed to offer 2 pocket parks throughout the community. That's an image of one of the pocket parks that's built within the roads there, and then that's an additional one that's at the back of the subdivision. Overall, we have set aside about 10 acres of actual HOA-maintained open space. In addition, we've imposed landscape buffers on a lot of the rears of the property that would be basically written into the covenants of the subdivision that would have clearing restrictions. This would be similar to the buffer condition that was recently added in red, except they're bigger than 20 feet in a lot of instances. But overall, if you take the area that would be devoted to those landscape easements in addition to the area that's actually HOA maintained and owned property, it's approximately 23 acres of the site, which is about 40% of the overall development site that would be protected in either open space or landscape covenants. As far as architecture goes, Templar has gone outside of the Atlanta market to do some research to try to come up with, again, different variety that we felt like was appropriate for this particular community. And so this is some of the architecture they're proposing for this development. Very high roof pitches, very different, unique architectural styles for this. There'll be, again, single-family or single-story homes, ranch homes, and then some will be 2-story. And these are just some street views of those houses, try to pay attention to some of the features along the sides of the homes. That was some early feedback that we received, was to try to add some character on the sides of the homes rather than it being just a big wall of siding. So there was a video, but I guess for some reason it got left out of the thing. It was in the original, but it's fine. I think we did a good job of showing this. So, again, the house that currently exists on there is approximately 13,000 square feet. It was a very large mansion built about 40 years ago. It's been unoccupied for the last 10 years, to the point where the decision was made that it really wasn't worth the rehabilitation, and given that the fact that all of the areas around this piece of property have developed, the market for somebody to buy that as their primary residence wasn't there. So we felt like this was a very appropriate use for the property, again, given the development that has occurred all around us. We've tried to incorporate as much of these improvements that the original home builder made on the property with the trails and the lakes and whatnot, and felt like we've been prudent at respecting some of those things, trying to incorporate some of those things, adding buffers with respect to the adjacent properties. And so we've consistent with the future land use map, consistent with the Unified Land Development Code. And with that, I understand staff has recommended approval, which I'm thankful for. We're okay with all of the conditions that were proposed. And at this point, I'm happy to answer any questions, or I can sit down. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Does the board have questions for the applicant?
I do. Can you tell me the price points of the proposed homes? I know it's a proposal, but, you know.
Yes, sir. I did not cover that in my presentation, but I also failed to mention the size of the homes too. Let me just cover that real quick too, because I think that'll go in hand in hand. 1,800 square foot minimum is what's proposed for the ranch homes. 2,200 square foot minimum is proposed for the two-story homes, and we estimate these homes to start in the low to mid $500,000 range.
Thank you.
Okay. Any additional questions for the applicant?
Just one more, maybe for staff or for applicant. Has a traffic impact study analysis been done, or will there be one done?
There will be, it's one of the conditions that staff has recommended, and we will have that, and that study would have to be provided before any kind of development permit was issued, and it'll be the developer's responsibility to comply with whatever recommendations are made as a result of that study.
Thank you.
Okay, I have one question for staff. The adjacent property, what is it zoned as of this point?
The adjacent properties are currently zoned as R3, and then there across the street, there's RA as well.
R3 and R?
A, so residential agricultural,
Yeah.
and R3, single-family residence.
Thank you. Okay. Any additional questions for staff or the applicant? If not, you may be seated. We have 2 minutes and 26 seconds for anyone wishing to speak in favor. We have additional 2 minutes and 26 seconds for anyone wishing to speak in favor. Okay, if not, I don't see anyone coming. We'd like to allot 10 minutes for anyone wishing to speak in opposition. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record. If you're speaking in opposition.
Hello, my name is Natasha Landfair. I live at 3134 Alhambra Circle, Hampton, Georgia 30228. So we are Crystal Lake Village, the subdivision to the direct side of this proposed subdivision. I am against it. When we are going through the presentation here, some of the things that he's saying doesn't make sense. You cannot have lots that are half the size of our lots that will cost more than our average property value. So to me, that is a bald-faced lie. Second of all, if you're gonna put 150 homes in this area and the street has not been widened yet, it's already a dangerous intersection. You're gonna have 6 entry and exit points between Crystal Lake Village, the gates at Pates Creek. They sit across from each other, so you're gonna put another subdivision within less than 500 feet of our entrance and exit. We already have 2 to 3 cars that go through the gates on that street every single year. It's dangerous. I think it is irresponsible to put that many homes on such a small parcel of land. If anything, leave it zoned as R2 and build bigger properties on fewer lots. That would make more sense to me than sticking 150 homes on such a small piece of land. And I don't think that they're gonna build it to the standard that has been set before them, with most of the homes being set as 4-sided bricks in our covenant. I can guarantee you, these homes will be mostly siding, and they probably will not have the windows on the side as shown in this presentation. So I think it will bring our property values down. I think it will increase the danger of that already dangerous intersection, and I oppose.
Thank you. Okay, we have 7 minutes and 45 seconds.
Good evening, Board. My name is Angie Collins. I reside in Crystal Lake Golf and Country Club community. And I do have a couple of concerns about the presentation that was just given to us about 150 homes. Jonesboro Road, it's from my understanding, they're not going to widen that street beyond Jonesboro and Mount Carmel. So to have that magnitude of homes is a large concern. Not only that, but the materials, because what I see in the area are homes that are more established. You have individuals who are, they're more upscale. And to see the materials based on what I'm looking at in the pictures, none of them had three-sided brick, four-sided brick, and I think at a very minimum, we should require three-sided brick homes. I concur with what the young lady that spoke before me said. I am very concerned about traffic because when I moved here 18 years ago, it was fairly easy to get to the shopping center. Now that we have all of these homes that are being built and the potential for even more homes, it takes 20 minutes to go 5 minutes. So that's a major concern. And some of the things that I want to see put into place when they do start building homes are closing, the way that they do things, like the builder's gap. As a homeowner, they didn't close my builder's gap. I had to come out of pocket $2,000, excuse me, in order to close that. So some of the things that are not being done, we want to make sure that we get first class in our community, because that will reflect not only what we have right now, but the potential of who moves in and what we might be exposed to. Thank you.
Thank you. We have 6 minutes remaining.
Thank you for the time check. Hey, my name is Eugene Larkins, 3513 5 Iron Court, Crystal Lake Village. You'll hear more from me because of your eminent domain that you pulled on me for the Dutchtown Road in the upcoming weeks. And thanks for the non-notification for the court actions that you took in doing this. My problem with this group is, number one, Georgia Secretary of State lists their business as non-compliance. Better Business Bureau lists their business as not accredited. So what is the process with this board and the staff for vetting who you're doing business with? I like what the 2 other ladies brought forth, in particular pertaining to Dutchtown Road and the type of properties that they're putting up in this 150 units, because I don't think thought went into it. When you look at, and maybe this is best for your engineers, contour lines of the maps from FEMA and from you over the last 10 years, the closer the lines get, the further the degradation or the cause for problems in the land. On my property, being the one that's from the C4 track to the C5 track, the biggest parcel of land being taken, there's already sinkholes developing because we didn't do our due diligence with D.R. Horton with Crystal Lake Village. Now you're going to let another person on there. There are so many issues with the home that I moved into November of 2018, from a basic national standards, from not having the proper size spacing for going into the attic with the oversized HVAC unit. It's simple things like that, grounding units, how the foundation was laid, that I'm getting from my appraisers that saying was done incorrectly. How are we managing this? Who is the project manager? When someone approached me last summer about getting the tract of parcel that through eminent domain you're trying to take, I brought that up. Where's the scope of work? Where are the engineers? I've already brought 2 federal construction engineers, my uncles from the military end, that looked at it and see these sinkholes that are developing from your sewer. You got a sewer person here on the staff? From these sewer things that's never been treated. And so now you're going to allow someone else to come and build alongside that lake, which has crested twice in 22 and in 23. When you look past it, it runs into a flood zone. And so you're talking about putting up buffers. You need to do what you do with freeways then, because there's nowhere for water to run off when you make that a hard wall, but until the properties of Crystal Lake and until the properties that they're talking about developing. So my problem is, I don't think your engineers did their due diligence when they looked at this, how they're going about the expanding, and I'll stop being cognizant of these others around me. Thanks for the time.
Thank you. Okay.
Good evening. My name is Cynthia Jewell. I live in Traditions at Crystal Lake. I am a graduate of Leadership Henry, class of 2018, a former principal in Henry County Schools, as well as a former member of Mary Elizabeth's Executive Cabinet in Henry County School District. I am coming to you on behalf of the school system. I do know I have already fact-checked what was presented as far as the school board, that they have agreed that the Dutchtown cluster can accommodate those additional 200 students. However, this gentleman talked about a minimum of 1,800 square feet and a minimum of 2,200 square feet, where the homes in Traditions are at a minimum of about 3,500 square feet. So they are not comparable. I also am saying that when I I went around and drove around and talked to the agents at the homes that are currently for sale in that area by Templar, and they told me the first thing that people ask about are the schools. They are concerned about the schools and the schools' ratings. I also know that in Traditions, the new phase, that people have already in less than 2 years almost foreclosed on their homes or trying to leave because they cannot afford. So why are we going to allow these developers to come in, build these things, people can't afford them, and then the property value is going to go down, which in turn is going to impact the schools and the schools' ratings? I know we don't like to say this, but socioeconomic status does impact schools, and that's what I am here for. That developer gave a great presentation. If you were impressed, as he said, y'all were impressed based upon the recommendations that he has made. I am not, and I am here in favor of making sure that our schools do not decline, as well as because of the people that we are putting in here and lowering our standards as to what type of properties we are allowed to be built. Thank you.
Please. We have a short amount of time, but ma'am, go ahead and speak,
I'm gonna go
please.
fast. My name is Tanja Thornton. I live on 462 Kellytown Road, and I just moved over here in November to get away from the hustle and bustle and seem like I'm back in that same category. I love people, I love animals. It is dangerous out there already. A little girl just got killed just less than a year ago, right on Kellytown Road. And do we think about the safety, or are we thinking about monies? What are we thinking about here? Because people matter, you know, and if we put a whole cluster of people together, it's gonna cause problems. Are we looking at that, or are we just looking at the money? I understand that money makes the world go around, but if we don't have the people, what's the use of the money? You know, everywhere I ride, there's poor animals, and he said that there is heavy vegetation. That's for the animals. Or do we think about them? You know, every time you ride, it's a dead animal. That's because we're taking their homes. Do anybody think about that, or is it just about the money? That's all I have to say. Think about that.
Thank you very much. Okay. We've exhausted our 10-minute time frame. I ask that in the future, if we're coming forward, let's please stick to the point and keep in mind we have 10 minutes that we are sharing for the group that wants to speak in opposition or in favor. Okay. Does the board have additional questions for staff or the applicant? No? Okay. All right, if not, we may call the case.
RZ-24-02, Templar Development Group LLC of Fayetteville, Georgia, requests a rezoning from R2, single-family residence to R5, single-family residence for a property located at 3435 Jonesboro Road in land lots 105 and 120 of the 6th District. The property consists of 57.26 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a single-family cluster home development. District 5, presented by Taylor Solomon, Planner 3.
Okay, we've heard the case. Do we have a motion?
Yes. I make a motion to approve RZ 2402 with conditions that staff has proposed.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All right, any discussion? All in favor? I need a count, please. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
Call the next case, please.
RZ-24-10, Smith Douglas Homes of Woodstock, Georgia, request a rezoning from RA, residential agricultural, and C2 general commercial to RM multifamily residence for a property located at 1356 Highway 155 South in land lots 226 and 227 of the 7th District. The property consists of 42.65 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a townhome development, District 5, presented by Kenta Lanham, Planner 3.
Good evening, Chair, board members, and citizens of Henry County. The item before you is property located at 1356 Highway 155 South and is approximately 42.65 plus or minus acres. Property is currently zoned RA, residential agricultural, as well as C2 general commercial. The rezoning request before you is to rezone the subject property from R to RM, multifamily residence, for the purpose of a fee simple detached cluster home and townhome development. Quickly going back to that aerial map here, in that zoning map, RA and C2, and the future land use map designation of urban residential, which would support a density of between 4 and 12 dwelling units per net acre. This is the conceptual site plan that was submitted by the applicant. The plan indicates 70 detached cluster homes and 140 townhome units for a total of 210 units. Proposed density is 10.5 dwelling units per net acre. And this is just showing some details on that site plan as well as that typical lot detail there. Here are some elevations of the townhomes that were submitted by the applicant. These elevations may change as we move towards the Board of Commissioners meeting. Here are those detached cluster homes. And some similar developments in the area shown here on this screen. Here are some comments that we've received from various departments as part of staff's evaluation, which would include the Water and Sewage Authority, DOT and Transportation Planning, the school board, as well as police and fire. The applicant is requesting to rezone the property from RA and C2 to RM multifamily residence for that fee simple detached cluster home and townhome development. Again, the plan indicates 70 detached cluster homes and 140 townhome units for a collective 210 units. With that net density of 10.5 dwelling units per acre, that would be supported under that urban residential future land use map designation between that threshold of 4 and 12 units. As a multifamily development that will need to meet those multifamily design standards in our code, it is also located within the Highway Corridor Overlay District and would need to meet those standards therein. Once more, that site plan. Staff does recommend approval of the applicant's request to rezone the subject property from RA and C2 to RM multifamily residence with the conditions shown on the overhead screen. Thank you so much, and I'd be happy to take any questions you might have.
Okay. Does the board have questions for staff?
Just one question, please. This area, if approved, is there, how far is the fire department from this facility?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that question?
I just wonder how close is the nearest fire department?
Yes, that is, I have my notes here. Fire station, McDonough Fire Station 52 would service the development that is on 1063 Avalon Parkway. That is approximately 1.9 miles from the subdivision.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any additional questions for staff? Okay, if not, I'd like the applicant to come forward, please. Again, please state your name and address for the record.
Chair, Mr. Risher actually had a comment.
I'm sorry,
question.
Mr. Richard, I'm so sorry, go ahead.
Yes, I would like to see you to put the aerial photo that we have in our reports so that we can see more clear what the surrounding land use is in the vicinity of this site, both residential but also commercial and heavy industrial.
Certainly. So this is the aerial map here, where we see a lot of those gray boxes. Those are some of those industrial properties, of course. To the south and to the west, there are some of those residences. But primarily, especially along Highway 155, you see a lot of those industrial developments. Some of those properties along 155 are shown in red there, are actually zoned commercial currently. But as far as, with this map, you see some City of McDonough property on that top left, those subdivisions to the south and west, as well as that industrial once again.
Okay. Any additional questions, Mr. Richard?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, Mr. Moore.
Good evening, Chair. Again, members of the board, Steve Moore, Moore Bass Consulting, 1350 Keys Ferry Court, McDonough, Georgia. I'm here representing Smith Douglas for this case. As Kenta mentioned, the application covers 43 acres of land that is largely surrounded by a lot of heavy industrial warehouse uses. Stony Brook subdivision immediately to the south and Ferris Park to the west. We felt like this was a kind of a good transitional use between the existing residences and the big warehouses. But the property is zoned RA C2. We have access to both Highway 155 and a small access to Ferris Drive that serves as the two required access points. This is the future land use map overlay. As you can see, we have medium density residential adjacent to us, and our side is designated as urban residential, which supports up to 4 to 12 units per acre. It's my understanding that pick was made during the future land use map adoption to provide density for workforce housing, much needed areas for people that work in the warehouses or in the surrounding areas. And so we felt like we had kind of met the mark as far as what the responsibilities and policies and goals were of that comp plan. This is the aerial photo of the property. You can see there is about half the site is heavily wooded. Our plan does a good job of trying to preserve that area in its current state for the most part to provide buffering for the Ferris Park community. In addition, we'll have other buffers that will buffer not only the road at Highway 155, but also at Stony Brook. This is our site plan. So with the request of RM, we have tried to provide a variety of residential products and uses within this community. So there are 100 rear-accessed attached townhomes, 28 front-access townhomes, 51 rear-access single-family homes, and 19 front-access single-family detached homes for a total of 210 units at 10.5 units per acre, which again is less than the 12 units per acre that is allowed under the current land use. We have proposed 30-foot buffers along the adjacent to Stony Brook and adjacent to Ferris Park, with the addition of that large area at the backside that says open space buffer area. Again, that is already heavily wooded, with the exception of what has to be done for the detention pond. That area will remain, for the most part, wooded and undeveloped like it is today. We've also proposed a minimum of a 90-foot wide buffer along Highway 155. It's actually considerably larger than that in some areas, again, with the goal being to not only buffer people traveling down 155 from the development, but people living inside of this community that don't want to deal with see the tractor trailers and whatever else is going on with the warehouses across the street. So again, back to the types of residential products that we're proposing. There's 51 units that front this large boulevard-style entry. That'll be, lanes in each direction with a large planted median in the front. Given that it will be a planted median, we felt like it was going to be a really good streetscape to have those units all be rear alley accessed. So every one of those units that's highlighted there would be rear accessed. And then these are some representative images that the builder provided that is for that product. And as you can see, there's no driveways, no big garages in the front. It'll have really good curb appeal, we believe, and really be a nice entry into the community. A mixture of one story and 2 story. This is a similar project that the same developer did in another jurisdiction with that same type of roadway, showing the sidewalk out to the road, providing kind of the opportunity for people to congregate on the front porch instead of in their backyards. And that's that median there. This is taken from our site plan. And then in the middle of on the north end of the development, there are a small number of detached homes that will have front access like your typical subdivision with the garage in the front. And here's some representative examples of those houses. And then in the middle of the development is the rear-loaded townhomes. And so again, all these would be rear alley accessed. They'll be pushed up close to the road so that you have that front porch similar, close to the street, providing walkability and kind of socialization at that level. And that's a rendering of the actual site plan that you saw earlier. And then in the back, up against the kind of the more commercialized areas, there's 28 front access townhomes, and these are some images from those. So the detached homes are expected to be 1,500 square foot minimum is what we've proposed. The townhomes would be 1,700 square foot minimum. We expect pricing to be in the high 200s to start, probably averaging in the mid 300s before it's done. Again, it's a kind of an infill piece of property nestled between some residential subdivisions, some high and some low density, and very intense industrial uses. We tried to come up with a plan that was a good transitional land use, spread between those two existing uses. We're consistent with the comp plan. We meet the RM zoning ordinance and the cluster home provision in that RM ordinance for the detached product. Feel like it's a reasonable approach, especially with that. The large divided median is something you don't see very often. It's very expensive to build, but would be a great, we think, entry into this community, kind of set it apart from your typical subdivision. So with that, we did read through the conditions. We have no issues with the conditions as they're proposed. And I did fail to mention that we do have a large amenity area into that roundabout at the very end of that divided median boulevard that will serve the entire community, as well as several pocket parks. I think we have 4 or 5 different unique pocket parks that are spread throughout the community with guest parking. So I will leave it at that, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you. Does the board have questions for the applicant?
Yes, I have one quick question. What particular amenities are you proposing?
And there will be a playground, pavilion, there'll be a fire pit. I'm not 100% sure if a swimming pool will be part of that facility, but it may very well be a small pool that would go with that community as well. And staff, I think, has recommended minimum. There's the RM ordinance that recently got adopted in July of last year has the minimum amount of amenities that are required based on the number of units, and will exceed whatever those minimums are.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ms. Walker?
I just wanted to know your entrances and your exits. One's going to go to Ferris Drive and one's going to go straight to 155, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
But doesn't Ferris Drive feed back to 155 also?
It does at that, yes, ma'am. It connects to 155 right there at the top right-hand side of the page. Yes, ma'am.
Isn't 155 still only one lane each way?
In that section, I think there's turn lanes, but generally, yes. But I know there are plans for widening that road. We're going to have to accommodate that in our plans.
And I would like to add that GDOT currently is working on plans to widen 155 in this area.
Okay.
At this point in time, I don't have a distance, a width, as far as how much the subject property is going to need to preserve and dedicate for that additional right-of-way, but we are in communications with GDOT. As soon as they have that number, we'll be adding that as a condition.
Okay. Any additional questions for, yes, Mr. Beam?
As far as street parking for visitors and that, is there any in that?
Yes, sir.
Can't tell?
You can't point with this thing, can you? Or can you? Does it work, a pointer? Oh, you can't see it on the screen. Oh, yeah, I guess you can a little bit. So there is, Mr. VM, I don't know if you can see that there's street parking right there. And then there's street parking inside of that little pocket park on the, can you see my pointer at all?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so there's street parking right there. There's street parking right there in the middle. There's street parking right there. So there's kind of three sections of parking that meets the one space per 4 unit requirement that the multifamily code has.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Richard?
Yes, now this property, it adjoins a fairly large residential community that's, I believe it's R3, single-family detached homes. And I would like to know more about what kind of a buffer you would have between this development and the existing homes. Would it be more trees or fences or perhaps some combination?
There's a are you talking about adjacent to Stony Brook?
Yes, where
Yes,
it says 20 feet wide, and then there's a community that's zoned R3.
Yes, sir.
Directly south of it.
Yes, sir. We've got we've proposed a 30-foot buffer along the southern property line adjacent to Stony Brook. That has existing trees in it today, and if there is any areas that are impacted or that don't have current vegetation, we're happy to augment that with additional evergreen trees. And if a fence is necessary, we're happy to do that as well to protect that community as well as ours.
Any additional question, Mr. Richard? Okay, does any other board members have questions? Okay, if not, you may be seated, sir.
Yes, sir.
We have 2 minutes and 49 seconds. Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Okay, we'd like to allot 10 minutes for anyone wishing to speak in opposition. I don't see anyone coming forward. Does the board have additional questions for staff or the applicant? Okay, if not, we may call the case, please.
RZ-24-10, Smith Douglas Homes of Woodstock, Georgia, requests rezoning from RA Residential Agricultural and C2 General Commercial to RM Multifamily Residence for property located at 1356 Highway 155 South and land lots 226 and 227 of the 7th District. The property consists of 42.65 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a townhome development District 5 presented by Kenta Lanham, Planner 3.
Okay, we've heard the case. Do we have a motion?
Yes, I make a motion to approve RZ 2410 with the documented conditions.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Richard. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimous. Call the next case, please.
This is an associated case, RZ-22-22 DRB Group LLC of Fayetteville, Georgia, requests a rezoning from RA Residential Agricultural to R2 Single Family Resident Sewer for property located at the northeast corner of the intersection of Old Kellytown Road and Kibbe Road in land lots 57, 58, and 71 of the 11th District. The property consists of 165.91 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a single-family residential subdivision, District 3, presented by Kenta Lanham, Planner 3. And CU-22-08 DRB Group LLC of Fayetteville, Georgia, requests a conditional use for property located at the northeast corner of the intersection of Old Kellytown Road and Kibbe Road in land lots 57, 58, and 71 of the 11th District. The property consists of 165.91 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a conservation subdivision, District 3, presented by Kenta Lanham, Planner 3.
Okay.
Good evening, Chair, board members, and citizens of Henry County.
Good evening.
The two requests before you are for property located at that northeast corner of Kellytown Road, Old Kellytown Road, and Kibbe Road. Property is currently zoned RA Residential Agricultural. The applicant is requesting to rezone the subject property from RA to R2 sewer for the purpose of a single-family conservation subdivision. Here's that zoning map and that future land use map, which indicates the subject property as being low-density residential, supporting a density of up to 2 dwelling units per acre net. This is the yield plan for the development, which shows the maximum number of lots the property can accommodate, meeting the conventional R2 sewer standards. That lot size would be 22,000 square foot. This yield plan could accommodate 219 lots. And here is their conservation plan, which takes into consideration the area that needs to be preserved as part of open space to allow for those smaller lots. This plan indicates 212 units with varied lot sizes, and we'll get into that in a second. Here are some elevations that were submitted by the applicant, as these elevations very well may change as we progress towards the Board of Commissioners meeting. This is a map that shows similar developments within the area. And I should also note, these subdivisions here on the map, they are the R2 sewer subdivisions. A lot of the R2 existing in the area that was developed before sewer was made available. So again, these additional subdivisions, those are the ones in the area that show properties on sewer, such as this property, subject property tonight. Here are some comments that we received from various departments, including the Water Authority, the DOT and Transportation Planning Department, the school board, and police and fire. The applicant is requesting a rezoning from RA, residential agricultural, to R2 sewer for the purpose of that conservation subdivision. Reviewing the yield plan shows a potential 219 lots with a density of 1.55 dwelling units per acre net. That is supported under the future land use map designation of low density suburban, which would support up to 2 dwelling units. Part of the request here tonight is a conditional use to allow for a conservation subdivision. Conservation subdivisions, they require at least 40% of the gross area to be preserved. And to accommodate that would also allow for lots as small as 10,890 square feet, approximately a quarter of an acre. With the conservation subdivision as proposed, they are proposing a lot count of 212, which again is actually lower than the maximum number of lots they could at 219. So there are 7 lots under that with the conservation plan. This conservation plan shows 3 different lot sizes. 22,000 square foot lots were adjacent to Kippy Road for a total of 34. 33 lots with a lot size of 18,000 and a minimum lot size of 12,000 at 125 lots. So all of these lots as proposed, they are well above the 10,890 that the applicant could, under the the conservation subdivision requirements that they could build to. Once again, here is that site plan. We see in pink some of those 22,000 square foot lots. Just above it, kind of in that brown tannish color, you see that is the 18,000 square foot lots. And the yellow to the north, you see the 125 lots for a lot size of 12,000. With all that, staff does recommend approval of RZ 2222 for the RA to R2 sewer request with the following conditions. With 15 in total, and staff is also recommending approval of CU 2208 for that conditional use for conservation subdivision with that one condition. Thank you so much. I'd be happy to take any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you. Does the board have questions for staff?
Yes, I do. What characteristics or what features of this property does staff consider it as to whether this should be a conservation subdivision or just a regular subdivision layout, which you first showed on the screen, I believe is called a yield plan, but what features are important to even consider this as a conservation subdivision? And then explain to us further what a conservation subdivision is.
Yes, certainly. So this is the yield plan, again, showing the 219 lots. With this conservation, specifically, not all.
Okay, I can't hear you very well. If you could speak into the mic.
This is the yield plan, which shows that maximum number of lots of 219, meaning the conventional R2 standards of 22,000 square foot lots. And this is that yield plan. Here the conservation plan. Here we see a large portion of the property being designated for open space, being preserved. If I'm not mistaken, that is 43%, maybe 46% of the space being preserved as open space. So a little bit more than that minimum required. With conservation, we see a lot less land disturbed, of course, and to accommodate that, we do allow for those smaller lots. I should also mention, with conservation subdivisions, there are buffer requirements. That is a 100-foot enhanced or undisturbed landscape buffer where adjacent to a road, in this instance, a little bit on Kellytown, Old Kellytown, and Kibbe Road. And the remaining perimeter that would be required to be at least a 50-foot undisturbed or enhanced buffer. So with that conservation, between conservation and a conventional subdivision, conservation, we of course, as the name implies, conserve a little bit more green space with those increased buffers.
Okay, just one other question. On the color codes, now the orange-looking areas, are these the lots that would be 22,000 square feet?
Yes, those lots that are 22,000 are shown in that pink kind of orange color at the southern end of the property. Those are, we're adjacent to the Kibbe Road properties, which are zoned RA currently, minimum lot size of an acre.
All right, and then behind those lots, there's I think 100-foot wide green strip.
Yes.
Which, and I've been out to the property several times to see it, and it is heavily wooded. However, there are some gaps in the in the buffer area or the trees areas, and I think that there would have to be some more planting, to have a good screening buffer if this were to be approved. And let's see, there's a cell tower on this property?
There is a cell tower. It's kind of in that northwest corner.
Okay, and I think that I think it's a little bit under 200 feet high, so there has to be an area, if it were to fall down, that would have to be open space. Is that correct?
Yes, I have the height of the cell tower being 185 feet. Our code would require setback from the base of the tower to all all structures on off-site residential dwellings shall be at 110% of the tower height. In this instance, 203 feet. And that's in accordance with our code in Chapter 7. That is also made a requirement in one of our conditions. I don't recall which one exactly.
Okay.
Oh, that would be condition 8.
Okay, and then there's no street or access or entrance that's proposed on Kibbe Road, is that correct?
That is correct.
So all access would be from Old Kellytown Road?
Right. I will note that the fire department, potentially they may require an emergency access off of Kibbe. but in that instance, it would solely be emergency access. It is not a full access for residents to come in and out of. So residents of this subdivision, if approved and developed, they would only be taking access to the site from Old Kellytown Road.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Richard. Does the board have additional questions for staff? Okay, if not, we'd like the applicant to come forward. Again, please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Steve Moore, Bass Consulting, 1350 Keys Ferry Court, McDonough, Georgia. Here tonight representing DRB Group in the Ambrosia Conservation Subdivision and rezoning. So Kent does such a good job. I don't have to really say much, but it's in my blood. I think I have to talk. So I'm going to probably repeat a lot of things, and I apologize in advance. But 166 acres. This is an aerial photo just showing the kind of context of the area. The future land use map, this property is now designated as low-density residential, and then you can see immediately to the west is the village land use designation, which is the Publix Kellytown Village, and then immediately across the street from that is the Ewell Forest property, which was recently rezoned for a commercial development. This is the aerial photo that shows the property in its current condition. So there is a power line that bisects the property north and south that has been designed around. And then there's kind of shown in the middle of the site, going from the right side of the map to the left side of the map, from east to west, is an existing sanitary sewer main that serves the existing public shopping center. So that is what the existing conditions look like. And again, as Kent mentioned, that's the yield plan that is a required step in the process of requesting a conservation approvals, conservation subdivision approvals. This yield plan, 219 lots as an R2 subdivision. And then this is our requested site plan. So we're showing 212 lots, 7 less than what was originally requested, or that was shown on the yield plan. 2 accesses to Old Kellytown Road, no access to Kibbe Road. And we do have 1 access serving a small pod that will access Kellytown Road. There is 43% of the site has been proposed to be dedicated and set aside as open space. Open space has been largely concentrated around the existing natural features, as well as we've incorporated, just based on what we've heard from this board and the Board of Commissioners on other conservation subdivisions, creating these open space separations, so lots that back up to each other, back up to an open space strip rather than backing up directly to them. So we've tried to incorporate as many of those as we could in this development. So the first development pod that we have is 115-foot wide lots, and those are those lots that back up to the 100-foot buffer that backs up to Kibbe Road. We felt like that was an appropriate size lot to try to create some compatibility with those existing homes there. There are 34 lots in that phase, and then as you move north, the lots get slightly smaller. These lots would be 100-foot wide. There's 33 of those. And then as you move further north, the balance of the site is comprised of 80-foot wide lots. Again, as Kent mentioned earlier, the conservation subdivision allows you to go down to 60-foot wide lots, 10,890 square feet or a quarter of an acre. And we've opted to maintain the minimum width at 80 feet and the minimum lot area at 12,000 feet. So there are 3 separate amenity packages proposed within this community. In addition, there are walking trails that are shown in that kind of tan color that will meander through some of the environmental areas, providing, view sheds and connectivity, nature trails, and then would also connect the northern phase that accessed by Kellytown Road so they can access the amenities on the other side of that creek. The first amenity area, which is up at the main entrance, has the resort-style pool, clubhouse, pergola, the central mail kiosk, and then bike racks. And then internal to the community is another amenity area with an open event lawn area, playground, fire pit, and seating areas. And then across the power line easement in the back section of the project is the third amenity with a big lawn area, play field, fire pit, pergola, some lounge seating, and grilling stations. So this will be a highly amenitized development in addition to the walking trails and all of the open space. So DRB has gone back to the drawing board essentially and is in the process of developing a new pattern book that they intend to use for this project. These are some preliminary sketches that their architects were able to finish prior to this meeting. Much different than what was in the original application, much better, I believe, than what was originally submitted. But this is some examples of the 115-foot wide lots. Again, those lots that were back at Kibbe Road. Those lots would be 22,000 square feet, so roughly half-acre lots, and they would be all side entry garages. These are proposed to be, there's a blend of just different architectural styles and themes. All side entry garages, I think I mentioned that. And then as you move north again for the 100-foot wide lots, again, a 100-foot wide lot can easily accommodate a side entry garage, so that's the product types that they have proposed for that. Again, these are still a little bit of a work in process, but I wanted to show you those prior elevations as to give you a sense of the general theme that they are proposing for this project. So the 115-foot wide lots, I apologize, I forgot to mention, they're proposing a 3,500 square foot minimum, probably an average of 3,600 to 4,200 square feet. Again, I'm going to go back to those just so we can put that back in perspective. Estimated price points for these start in the low to mid 600s up to the low to mid 700s. So it's intended to be a very high-end, nice community. The 100-foot wide lots, these are proposed to have a 3,000 square foot minimum. They estimate 3,100 to 4,000 square foot average with a $550,000 price point. And then on the 80-foot wide lots, now given the size of the lots, these are proposed to be front entry garages as opposed to the other two pods. And they would have a 2,600 square foot with an average of 2,600 to 3,200 square feet with a $500,000 price point. So all in all, it's a big project. It's going to take a long time to build. We know that there are, concerns that will be brought up about traffic and concerns about a lot of things. I just would remind you that this is one of those that it's not going to happen in day one. This is a big project. It's going to take a long time to build out. They're expecting the build out to last through 2030 as far as, when these homes will be ready for, finished and all sold. So it'll have some time to catch up that. But I think we feel like it's a very, the best thing you can do with the project. With the fact that there's sewer running through it, somebody is going to develop this property. It's just a matter of fact. And it's just a matter of who. And we think that DRB has built a good reputation. They've proven that they have the ability to provide quality architectural homes. Again, we're compliant with the future land use map. We're compliant with the zoning requirements. We're compliant with the county's conservation subdivision ordinance. Hope that you agree. We've read through the conditions. We have no concerns with those. Mr. Risher, I heard your comment about the buffer adjacent to Kibbe Road. The applicant has had 2 community meetings with the residents in the surrounding areas to try to understand their concerns and try to, as best we can, to address those in this plan. I heard your comment about the potential voided vegetation in that area. The applicant, and the county has an ordinance that requires certain plantings to be provided in those buffer areas if they are void, but the applicant is more than willing to do those to try to do what they can to be able to provide that buffering to accommodate exactly what you were talking about. So at this point, I'm happy to answer any questions that you've got. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Does the board have questions for the applicant? Mr. Risher?
Okay, you have shown us some drawings of the types of homes that are proposed to be developed, but I don't see any one-story homes. Is there a possibility that there would be some variety of homes of?
Yes, sir.
of one-story and two-story?
Yes, sir. Like I said, these elevations are kind of a work in process. This was intended to communicate the general architectural theme that they proposed for this project, but I talked to the builder right before this meeting about maybe that being an opportunity for some additional variety. There is a ranch product proposed in the 80-foot lots, but on these larger lots, that's certainly an option, and we'll take that into consideration as they can direct their architects to include some of those floor plans as well.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Richard. Any additional questions for the applicant? Okay, you may be seated, Mr. Moore. We have 11 minutes, 16 seconds for anyone wishing to speak in favor. Okay, we'd like to allot 20 minutes for anyone wishing to speak in opposition. And keep in mind, I know there's a lot of people that want to speak on this case. Keep in mind that there's a lot of people who want to speak on this case. So please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Ralph Culpepper III. I reside at 132 Tuscany Court, McDonough, Georgia, which is directly adjacent to the subject property. I do have a petition I would like to pass out to the board if I have permission to approach.
Yeah, Henry.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I am an active community member and a Georgia licensed attorney. I'm speaking quickly because I want others to have an opportunity to be heard, but I am now voicing a verbal motion to the board, chairperson requesting an additional 15 minutes if needed so that each voice can be heard today, as is in the power and discretion of the chairperson per code section 212.00.05C3. I speak on behalf of myself, my family, and over 450 other property owners, majority of whom will be directly impacted by the recommendation of this advisory board and the ultimate decision of the Board of Commissioners. I am able to speak with authority on behalf of those property owners because myself being one of them, we have collected over 470 signatures, the first 470 within about a 48-hour period of community members who vehemently oppose this measure and whose voices will not accept to be ignored. And the more voices of opposition are coming. And so here you all just asked, who is here to talk in support of this? No one stood up, but yet I look behind me and I see so many people having to speak today. I think that should be taken into account. My purpose today is threefold. Present the community's opposition petition. You guys have that right now in the manila folder in front of you with 500 some signatures. I will say there may be like 2 or 3 people in there that you can see are from New York or something, but the vast majority of people are the ones who are in our community, and that is very important. Second, I want to explain some of the issues we collectively have with the present proposal as interested persons who will be aggrieved if this measure is approved. And finally, I would like to remind you of your duty on this advisory board in rendering a fair and impartial decision based on the current criteria and not just rubber stamping something so that it can go through. So this proposal was plagued with a set of problems. A, the current proposal does not meet the criteria set out by the board for approval and should be denied in its entirety, or in the alternative, at least deferred until some of these issues are corrected. Number one, we see the rendering that they have are not even the final drafts of the rendering. They should go back to the drawing board and be able to present you with a completed set of renderings. And Mr. Risher, is it Risher, right? Mr. Risher had a great question about one-story homes versus two-story homes. That is one of the conditions of this, is that you need to have a variety of homes. And they have not shown and proven that they have been able to give that to you guys. Per the reserve, let's see, these are not my criteria. These are not the community's criteria. Per the rezoning evaluation report, there are about 8 to 10 criteria you need to evaluate. So the proposal fails to meet criteria 1 and 3. It needs to be consistent with the comprehensive plan and have potential positive effects on the area and neighborhood. It fails here. The current designation is for low-density suburban. Adding 212 homes that are tightly close by On their rendering, you can see how close those houses are going to be. It is not consistent with the current neighborhood makeup, which are much larger lots, nearly an acre in size, on septic, with communities with as little as my community has 21 homes. The community next to it has about 100. And on their presentation, they only had 2 comparable communities that they were able to give you guys, and I would expect a much longer list. And then, what do I have here? Oh, and Kibbe Road is RA, it's already RA designation. They cite 2 mixed-use property under development, which is the commercial shopping center that's right across the street from an elementary school that my daughter goes to. I do not appreciate that there's a commercial development going there, but that does not help their case to cite to that. It hurts their case because it means that there's going to be even more congestion in an already congested area. We can do better. 212 new homes comes with at least 424 new cars on our local, and Miss Walker had a good question before about 155. It's one way both ways. That's right off of 155. Do we really want to add another 424 cars on that one-way road? Our infrastructure is just not here yet. It might be in the future. They're talking about 2030. Maybe in 2030 come back, but right now it is not where it needs to be. We're going to have more emission issues. I had a call with Commissioner Anglin about a few months ago, just talking with him. He said, we had a call at 1 o'clock. He said, I'm so sorry, Ralph. It took 40 minutes for me to get out of traffic on a 0.5 mile distance. And I said, it's okay, but that's an example of why we need to stop approving these. Just rubber stamping them. Come on. I mean, I moved to McDonough with my family for a reason, not to Atlanta, not to Gwinnett, not to Marietta. And so, I mean, this is a serious issue that I am hoping and pleading that you all are really listening to. And I don't mean to like come at you guys or shout at you, but this is really disturbing. The current proposal does not address any of these issues. It says it calls for a traffic impact study. I have not seen the study. Before we approve this in any way, form, or fashion, we need to see what the results of that study would be. Finally, criteria number 9 says that it should stay zoned as presently zoned unless they can tell us why it is not able to be zoned in the new designation. They need to do more homework on that. I have not seen any evidence to say that this property cannot be developed as is. And then the other part of it is that, sorry, I'm trying to kind of speed through. Criteria number 4 is supposed to align with the physical conditions of the site. The topography, the landscape, drainage issues, that fails here as well. The property has serious drainage issues. We have seen one letter from the Water Authority from 2022, but there have not been any other, there are some more concerns that my community members want to talk about in terms of the water. So I'll let them do that. Further, the fact that the development will be sewer has the real potential to substantially alter adjacent owners' property and livelihood. That's because in Henry County, if a new residential development is planned to be connected to a municipal sewage system while surrounding existing homes are on septic, then we now face a potential issue of having to switch. It is a gray area there. So that's also an issue. There have been no assurances to us that that's not going to happen. And then finally, the proposal fails to meet 5, 6, and 7 conditions, which are the potential impacts on adjacent property owners, county infrastructure, traffic volumes. These are your criteria, not mine and not the community's. And I implore you to seriously and thoughtfully and honestly analyze each of these criteria. On their rendering, right here on Old Kellytown, I don't know how often you go over there by the Publix. They have 212 people when they get ready to go to work, go get their kids, are gonna come out these 2 exits. That's gonna be terrible. That makes no sense. They need to go back and do their homework and present something that's better to this board. We deserve better. And finally, I said in the beginning that I was going to I was going to do three things: present the petition, argue why these plans should be rejected or at least deferred for now, and taken back to the drawing board, and finally, to remind you of your duty to make decisions that are in the best interest of our community, not the best interest of one single person with deep pockets. Your job is not to rubber stamp this. I have given you several real, meaningful things to consider, and I hope you do. Your duty as leaders is to make the right decision and recommendation. And I, for one, think that you can do better than approving something from an unaccredited, F-rated developer. I appreciate it, and I yield to the rest of my community members.
I agree with everything he said, but my name is Brenda Franklin. I live at 570 Brook Hollow Drive. I've been there for 21 years, and me and my family moved there for the current conditions. At the least, we would ask that you guys deny the current proposal, or at minimum seek a deferral. One being because the water capacity, the developer and the Water Sewage Authority should share capacity details with us to ensure there will be a minimum zero adverse impact on water pressure in the neighboring communities. Only a water capacity letter from the Water and Sewer Authority would not suffice. We need to see the modeled pre-development and post-development water pressures for that development. Would the existing hydraulic capacity be able to accommodate similar developments in the area in the future? And we need to see developers' water plans and profiles. In terms of the sewage capacity, I do not see a sewer capacity letter from the authority. We need to see the calculations and modeling used by the developer and accepted by the authority for such approval. Would the existing capacity be adequate to sustain similar development patterns in the future? If the authority feels that there is an adequate sewer capacity for this development, why is there no such optional consideration provided to existing communities like Brook Hollow that may wish to connect to the public sewer if so desired? Stormwater mitigation and stormwater quality enhancements. The developer should submit his stormwater mitigation and stormwater quality plans and profiles for review and acceptance by adjacent affected communities like Brook Hollow to ensure the existing lower elevation communities are not adversely impacted by the development. Architectural standards is another reason why you should deny. The architectural plans for this project should be submitted for community review and accepted for compliance with existing or better and more innovative standards. Traffic study impact, the developer should submit his traffic impact study report for review to ensure minimum impacts on traveling sites distance and ingress and egress from the development. And lastly, impacts on existing community resources. This development should be closely reviewed for its potential impacts on taxes for schools, parks, recreations, healthcare facilities, fire protection, police, emergency services, etc. What are the county and local government plans to provide adequately for above potentially impacted resources? Please consider denying this request or at minimum deferring it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record, ma'am.
Good evening, Board. I am Octavia Coleman, a Kellytown resident at 322 Kibbe Road, the director of the Henry County Democracy Center, and the current Henry County Democratic Committee representative for District 3. I currently own the Crumley House, a place that should be, and with the support of this county's government, will be identified as a historic landmark of the city of McDonough as well as the area of Kellytown. The Crumleys, as well as the Kellys, as well as the Mosleys, as well as the Elliots, they all demonstrated that two things can be true at one time. we can preserve our culture through agriculture, as well as expand our culture through integrative technology and community development. I have two professional recommendations at this time, and before I deliver those, I do want to acknowledge or remind you that while Kibbe Road, yes, they are zoned as RA, residential agriculture, please keep in mind that more than 63% of those residents on Kibbe Road, myself included, own more than 10 acres of land. It makes absolutely no sense to put 200 homes across the street from someone that owns 10 acres. That means, as one of my neighbors, she will have 18 neighbors in front of her one property. That makes absolutely no sense, and that is something that you will hear over and over and over again tonight. But my two recommendations is that while I am thankful for the outreach that DRB Homes has done thus far, they have been communicating, they have been transparent, they have been building a bridge of understanding, more time is needed. With what they're presenting right now, this is not sufficient. It will not suffice for this community. Again, Kellytown is the last historic stronghold for the city of McDonough. So if the founding families believed in cultural preservation, who are we to deny that? Who are we to step away from that? It is seeming that we don't need clean air, we need more houses. We don't need clean water, we need retail development. We don't need clean land, we don't need access to growing our foods. No, we don't need any of that. We just need to develop and develop and develop. That is foolish if we're looking at our future. Right now, many of the founding families of the city of McDonough, their children cannot even afford to live in the city because of this rapid urbanization. And, if I may add, very little planning with foresight. Second recommendation is that this board upholds the founding family's tenets, right? That we can continue to develop, we can continue to be progressive through preservation. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to cut this a
Please
little bit
state your-
shorter than I intended. A lot of this has already been touched on. I have shown pictures that have Old Kellytown, no outlet. Yeah, the road that's off of it, Kibbe, is dead end, no outlet. You've got 50 houses in the area, Bibby and down to the southwest. You're adding 110, well, I'm going to bring it down to about 196 because that upper north section isn't touching Old Kellytown. And all these are going to add vehicles. Your own criteria says it will not affect traffic. That's out of the place here. It's not going to affect traffic. Every map that I've seen has the southwest section as being open to State Road 155. It is not open, and the pictures I've got show that it is not open. So you've got all of that going up back into Kellytown Road. So all these 50 houses have to go through the traffic of the new subdivision. I have brought up to DRB, yeah, I'm not thinking, I've got a little bit of a problem. But DRB, that tower at 100, this was brought up earlier, that tower is 185 foot tall. They've got 203 feet, and that 203 feet is hitting 9 different lots. That's a no-no, and she's already addressed that to me, and it was addressed here. I've got a lot more against that I have put down prior about the reputation of DRB, the Better Business Bureau, and you can find all of the existing things on it. We also have something that she's going to be bringing up, flooding of an area that was not a DRB area, but it was caused by DRB. She's going to look into that. And I've got the name and picture, and I sent the video to you yesterday. So if you look at your email, you'll see that a video of the flooding that was happening after 20 years. I'm going to let next people, they don't have much time. I mean, sorry.
Please come forward, state your name and address for the record, sir.
Oh, by the way, I'm Steve Gilman.
Sir, you may be seated. Thank you.
Who's part?
Good evening. My name is Mitchell White. I live at 113 Hacienda Avenue in Locust Grove, Georgia. I'm also a candidate for state representative for District 81. And the reason why I'm here tonight, because as I'm out and about speaking to residents, one of the things that I'm constantly hearing is the concern about all the development and the builders. One thing that they've made clear to me is that they don't want their way of life being disrupted by overzealous developers and builders. And I'm just going to have to be frank. To sit up here and call this a conservation subdivision as if you're throwing the residents a bone. Why not conserve the area and build somewhere else? Why not do that? You know, don't throw us a bone by calling it a conservation subdivision. And I would just want to caution the board before voting on this development, consider the residents who live in these areas and who are going to have to live with the long-term ramifications of this development. We know that we're concerned with overcrowding. That leads to more traffic, more crime, and it leads to contamination of our wooded areas, our waterways, and just more traffic. So just consider the residents. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Let me just say, will you hold all clapping until the end of this? But what we're going to do is allow the 4 people standing approximately 2 minutes each to speak, and you can applaud them after, but at this point, you can go ahead and speak, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I'm Jeremy Hagler, 679 Keeby Road, and everybody's already touched off on a lot of things that I, was wanting to speak about too. But one thing I wanted to mention was my son goes to school at Pleasant Grove Elementary School, which is diagonally across the street from Publix right there. They already are having a really hard time retaining the teachers that they got over there at that school, and the class sizes are roughly double what they were when I was a kid. I've lived over here my whole life, and I feel like if you build a subdivision like that, they're going to be even more overwhelmed. Another thing on the buffers, the 100-foot buffers, I like the 100-foot buffers. I would like for them to also make a stipulation to make them a raised buffer, so that it gives you a little bit of privacy on both sides, and also make that buffer 100 foot where it backs up to the houses on Keeby Road too, not just the road itself. And another thing I was going to say is I work all over Henry County, and I go to a lot of neighborhoods that are, houses on a quarter-acre lot, stuff like that, and it's really not enough room for people to live. I don't have a place to park my truck. Everybody's parked on the sides of the road. A lot of times when there's a house on fire or something like that, the houses are so close that it catches the neighbor's house on fire. I saw y'all approved 200 houses on 40 acres earlier, so I don't know what y'all are thinking about on this one, but I'd like to see fewer houses, maybe on a half-acre lot, something like that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Please state your name and address for the record, ma'am.
Amina Ramsey, 515 Brook Hollow. So good evening, board members. Attorney Culpepper stated everything that my community and I have been saying. I am a recent resident, my family and I, to the area. I grew up in Fayetteville. I attended Rising Star Middle School and Stars Mill High School. I attended Georgia Southern University in Statesboro, and then I attended law school at Florida A&M University College of Law. The traffic in this area is already bad. As you all know, Kellytown Village is new. We have a Publix, we have a Your Pie, we have a nail salon, we have a chiropractic office, we have a dental office, we have a Wendy's, and we have 4 more businesses coming, as well as a breakfast restaurant called Scrambled. The traffic is already insane. Old Kellytown Road is one way in, one way out. Unfortunately, Brook Hollow has 1 entrance and 1 exit. We do not have an emergency entrance or an emergency exit, as well as the neighborhood across the street. The only neighborhood on Kellytown Road that has 2 entrances is Elliott Grove. And school is out of session, and the traffic is already bad. Imagine when the senior living center that's 3 stories next to Kellytown opens, that traffic, the elementary school traffic. I work at Deloitte. My sister works for the state of Georgia. My mother is an elementary school teacher. We have to get up and go to work every day, and I have to go to Midtown every day. That is a lot, and I can't imagine my 1 hour and 20-minute commute being even longer, because I like my job. I have to keep my job. I have bills. But no, please, I ask that you all respectfully deny DRB Homes' request. Thank you.
Thank you. Please state
Chair,
your-
Board.
Yes, please
Good
state your
evening.
name and address, sir.
Ron Burkhalter, Airline Road, Henry County. I'd like to make a correction to the gentleman, the first gentleman that spoke there. In Henry County and DOT, for traffic planning, okay, the number's 10. 10 trips per house per day. You go to work, you come home, you go to the grocery store, you come home, you take your kids to
Sir,
school, you pick them up, the
sir,
number's 10.
Please address the board, address us. Thank you.
Okay, so it's 10 trips, 2,120 cars that you're adding to Old Kellytown Road. It's an unimproved road. The intersection with Kellytown and Old Kellytown is unimproved. Again, 2,120 additional cars that you're putting on the road out there without any improvements. All the improvements to the roads and to the intersections in this county have been done through SPLOST for the past 20 years. Old Kellytown and the intersection is not on the SPLOST list. So the earliest that you could have funds to improve that intersection would be 8 to 10 years. Again, it's just a lot of traffic. The property now is zoned RA. Develop it as RA. There's RA subdivisions all over the county. So if you develop it as RA, it cuts down on the traffic, and I just think that it just should make sense that we should get the infrastructure in place before we bring the development. Thank you.
Thank you. Please come forward and state your name and address, sir.
My name's Paul Wheat. I live at 728 Kibbe Road, and I've been a resident of Henry County for 47 years in this same house on Kibbe Road. You're going to put a conservative subdivision at the end of my road. He didn't show any backs to the houses. That's what everybody on our road will be seeing. The back of the houses, not the front. When you come out of there, you're going to be in a traffic jam. The gentleman in front of me said Old Kellytown Road, which is just a rough 2-lane road. And you're going to have people coming out of there, these 212 homes. My road, Kibbe Road, roughly 55 homes, another subdivision with 40 houses in it. And you just put a 73 assisted living housing unit at the end of Kibbe Road. So if you think you're going to get everything through this one road out and moving, it's not going to happen. Traffic is terrible. They can't seem to fix the roads in Henry County right now. Henry County roads, you go anywhere, you get your car lined up after you go somewhere. The roads are terrible, and the water situation, where you putting these houses at, I've got a neighbor living across the street from me. He's sitting right back here. I've seen his yard flood. I mean, it wasn't a yard. He owns about 15 acres, and it was up just about to where his yard goes to his house. So the water situation on our end of the road, the far end of Kibbe Road, is bad. So my suggestion is not to do this. I appreciate your time, people.
All right, thank you. Okay. Yeah.
Chair, before we proceed, I would like to make note that because we provided additional time, a collective 8 minutes for those wishing to speak in opposition, we will need to also allow an additional 8 minutes for the applicant if he wishes
We
to
will.
speak.
Okay, all right, no problem. All right. Does the board have additional questions for the applicant or questions at this point?
Okay, I make a motion.
Now, hold up, Mr. Richard. Any questions? Do you have questions for, okay. I'd like for Mr. Moore, please come forward. As stated, we allow additional time for the opposing group. Do you have anything additional that you would like to add to?
The only thing I'll say is there was a lot said, and I understand and appreciate everybody's position, but I will say that the county has a process that you go through to file, to even hear a zoning application. One of them is to get a water and sewer verification letter from the Henry County Water Authority that confirms sewer capacity. It confirms water pressure. And if you don't have that, you don't even make it this far. So we have gone through that exercise. We have petitioned the school board to understand the impact on that, and they have released their letter, which is a required step in this process. As far as hydrology studies and due diligence and planning, this project has been on the books for 3 years almost of planning and has gone through multiple iterations. There are a lot of steps that are going to be required before a permit is issued to develop this property. And those are steps that will happen post this zoning process. And that it does include hydrology studies that will make sure that any of the adjacent properties aren't adversely impacted by impervious areas and grading and construction. And that's what engineer firms like ours has a legal obligation to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the general public by making sure those plans are designed and accommodated appropriately. Traffic study will absolutely be required as it's proposed as a condition. It will be done before any construction happens. That traffic study will indicate any necessary improvements, and those will be on the back of the developer to get done. And again, we have tried, the applicant hasn't tried to engage the community at least 2 community meetings. I unfortunately wasn't at the first meeting, but due to the number of people, they volunteered to go back to the drawing board and then host a second meeting. And I think they sent 75 or so applicant or invites for the group of, with the names that came from the first community meeting. I was able to attend that one. It was a virtual meeting. There was 5 people that showed up. So there was, it hasn't been, we have not been trying to shove this down anybody's throat. We've tried, the applicant has tried to engage the community. We do want to be a good corporate neighbor as best we can, and truly thought a conservation subdivision with all of the buffers, with all of the open space was the best approach. An RA subdivision on this property is not realistic. It's not what the owner of the property is willing to do. There is sewer on this property. The county will not let a development happen unless it connects to that sewer line. There is no obligation for any existing residents that has a septic tank to connect to a sewer line just because this subdivision is on sewer. So I just wanted to say that we have a lot of steps to go forward with. I'll say one more thing about the architectural stuff. That's a very recent requirement or request. I don't even know if it's in the code, but to include architectural renderings of buildings as you go file for zoning. It was done predominantly as a benefit to try to explain things. It recently has become a requirement. But the fact that these are conceptual, I don't want to be discriminated against saying that we haven't done our due diligence, because we are trying to go outside of the box of what you're used to seeing to provide something that is unique and different and nice. And that's what DRB has tried to do. And so I'll leave it with that. Thank you again.
Okay, thank you. Does the board have questions for the applicant?
Yeah.
Mr. Moore?
So, as far as getting another entrance onto Kellytown Road instead of just onto Old Kellytown Road, can we get that to happen?
You're talking about connecting the access to Kellytown Road into the development? That is something that we could certainly look at.
And And then as far as, we are close to a school. As far as having sidewalks on all the road, not Kibbe Road, but the other, the old Kellytown and the Kelly, So, because if this development has a lot of children, it would be better to have them on sidewalks than on the road.
Absolutely, I understand that.
Hold on, Mr. Moore, stop. Let me just, we have to conduct something here. Please, let's start with the outbursts. If there's any more outbursts, we're going to ask the police to escort you out. We have to listen to both sides here. So we need to move in a professional manner. Continue, Mr. Moore.
Yes, sir. Mr. VM, I think it's a very good comment, and we can absolutely extend sidewalks up Old Kellytown Road to connect to the entrance. There'll be sidewalks on both sides of the road anyway, internally to the development, and it would only make sense for them to have some place to connect to that would provide access not only to the to the retail center, which I think people will absolutely walk to that, and to the school as well. So we'd be happy to do that along our frontage, areas that we can control. Obviously, when we get outside of our frontage and our property, we don't have the ability to put a sidewalk on somebody else's property, but where we can control it, yes, sir, we can do that.
And back to that access onto Kellytown Road, are you ready to say you can do that?
There is a creek that separates those two phases of development, and I can commit to you that we will evaluate that as we move forward with this process, and if that is something that subject to our ability to physically make it work. That would be really the biggest limitation.
On the yield plan, I did see a road connecting that way.
Right.
So,
and the yield plan is truly a capacity study, right? It doesn't take into consideration some of the economic factors and the environmental factors. It's more truly a capacity study of how many lots will this piece of property hold based on that particular zoning district, that's used then as a guide for how to limit the number of lots that you're proposing with with a conservation subdivision. So it doesn't take into consideration the monetary impacts or
so
those
it's
types of
probably,
things.
You really couldn't probably work the yield plan as far as how many houses there. It's just kind of.
Depends on how much money somebody would want to spend and permits they would want to obtain from the Corps of Engineers or whoever to make it work.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Okay. I have a question and this may relate to staff or you, Mr. Moore. There was concerns about a traffic study.
Yes, sir.
Okay. What percentage of increase would warrant the halt of this project or the construction to rectify the traffic?
It's hard to answer because I don't have any clue what the study would actually generate. That study will study intersections beyond just what's right here. It's going to study existing intersections that don't show up on this map. It's going to study several areas, and I don't know what the levels of service are at those existing intersections and what the traffic study would generate as a requirement. But I do know that with it being a zoning condition, we will not be able to move to the next step of starting construction on the subdivision until whatever recommendations that are included in that traffic study are complete.
Right. And you understand the concern of the citizens when they ask for a traffic study prior to coming forward?
Yes, sir.
They're simply saying that we'd like to know what's going to take place before we get to this point.
Understood.
I will say that it is uncommon for us, for Henry County, development staff, to require a traffic impact study before zoning approval.
Okay.
I can't think of an instance of where we required it before zoning approval, before the BOC.
Thank you. Okay, yes, Mr. Richard.
Yeah, would the sidewalks, would that not be part of the traffic study which is required for a zoning approval?
The traffic impact study, and Steve, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe that takes into consideration sidewalks.
Okay, could not the sidewalks that are, brought up, could that be part of the traffic study?
Yes.
That,
Yeah, I understand what he's saying.
that would be required if this was approved as part of a zoning change?
Yes, if the board is looking to recommend approval, staff could make that a requirement of the traffic impact study to look at sidewalks.
Mr. Richard, if I may, were you asking if by installation of sidewalks and providing pedestrian connectivity to that retail center and to the school, would the traffic study take those pedestrian trips into consideration as replacement for vehicular trips? Is that what you were asking?
Yes.
Yes, I think the answer is yes.
Okay. Any additional questions for the applicant? Any additional questions for staff? Okay, I don't see anyone coming forward. You may be seated. Call the case, please.
These are associated cases. RZ-22-22 DRB Group LLC of Fayetteville, Georgia requests a rezoning from RA Residential Agricultural to R2 Single Family Residence Sewer for property located at the northeast corner of the intersection of Old Kellytown Road and KB Road in land lots 57, 58, and 71 of the 11th District. The property consists of 165.91 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a single-family residential subdivision. District 3, presented by Kenta Lanham, Planner 3.
Okay, we've heard the case. Do we have a motion?
Okay, this is the motion to approve the conditional use request.
This would be for the rezoning request.
Well, this would be the rezoning. We have a combined case here, the rezoning and the CU.
And we will move to the motion for the conditional use after this.
Okay. All right, this is to support the staff's recommendation for a conditional use permit for a conservation subdivision with the following conditions: that the development shall be substantially consistent with the conceptual conservation plans dated June 25, 2024, presented at the Zoning Advisory Board meeting.
I would like to make a quick comment on that.
I'm not sure what we're doing.
I believe that was a condition for the conditional use. Let me pull up those.
He was gonna do the zoning first and then do the conservation district after. So kind of backwards, but the zoning is what is.
Okay. All right, I'll withdraw that and.
Are you prepared, Mr. Richard?
Yeah.
Move forward. Okay, so do we have a motion on
The rezoning.
Rezoning. That's it.
Okay, are we asking for a,
The motion on the rezoning.
all right, this is, all right, this is a motion to support the staff's recommendation for a conditional use for a conservation subdivision.
And for the rezoning request,
Is somebody going to second it or what?
So are you doing the rezoning or the conditional use?
The conditional use.
Okay, we were doing the rezoning first, is how they presented.
Okay, okay, staff, what are we,
Mr. Richard,
Yes. Can planning staff one more time call that rezoning request?
Yes, these are associated cases, so I'll be calling in the rezoning case RZ-22-22 DRB Group LLC of Fayetteville, Georgia requests a rezoning from RA Residential Agricultural to R2 Single Family Residence Sewer for property located at the northeast corner of the intersection of Old Kellytown Road and Kibbe Road in land lots 57, 58, and 71 of the 11th District. The property consists of 165.91 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a single-family residential subdivision, District 3, presented by Kenta Lanham, Planner 3.
Okay, we have a motion for the rezoning. I'm sorry, we've heard the case for the rezoning. Do we have a motion?
okay, all right, this then is a motion to approve the rezoning request from RA to R2 Single Family Residential Subdivision.
Okay. All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Okay, we don't have a motion. The motion would fail, lack of second. Okay, do we have another motion? Another motion. Can I get another motion, please?
And to be clear, that since the first motion failed, for the first motion to fail, not receiving that second, the next two available options would be to table the case to a later date or make a motion for denial.
Right, I need a motion for denial.
I will move to deny.
Okay, we have a motion to deny. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion, have a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. CU, we have another.
Yes, the associated case CU-22-08 DRB Group LLC of Fayetteville, Georgia requests a conditional use for property located at the northeast corner of the intersection of Old Kellytown Road and Kibbe Road in land lots 57, 58, and 71 of the 11th District. The property consists of 165.91 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a conservation subdivision, District 3, presented by Kenta Lanham, Planner 3.
Okay, we've heard the case. Do we have a motion for CU 2208? Can I get a motion for CU 2208?
All right, is this for the conditional use?
Yes.
All right. I make a a motion to approve the applicant's request for a conditional use for a conservation subdivision with following conditions. And that would be that the development shall be substantially consistent with the conceptual conservation plan dated June 25, 2024.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second? Do I have a second for a motion? Okay, motion fails due to lack of second. Do I have a motion to deny?
I'll make a motion to deny.
Okay, we have a motion to deny. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion to deny and a second. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Call the next case, please.
RZ-24-11, James Strata of Jackson, Georgia, requests a rezoning from RA Residential Agricultural to R3 Single Family Residence for property located at 555 Pullen Road and land lots 240, 241, 256 of the 6th District. The property consists of 59.06 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a single-family residential subdivision. District 5, presented by Faith Akuta, Planner 1. And CU-24-01, James Strata of Jackson, Georgia, requests a conditional use for property located at 555 Pullen Road in land lots 240, 241, 256 of the 6th District. The property consists of 59.06 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a conservation subdivision. District 5, presented by Faith Akuta, Planner 1.
Mr. Chair, we're having a bit of technical difficulties, so we're going to need just one moment.
Okay, thank you.
All right, good evening, Mr. Chair. Again, we're ready to proceed.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good evening again, Chair, board members, and citizens of Henry County. The two requests before you are for property located at 555 Pullen Road. The property is currently zoned RA, Residential Agricultural, with the future land use designation of low-density suburban. The applicant is requesting to rezone the property from RA, Residential Agricultural, to R3, Single Family, for the purpose of a conservation subdivision. The following maps show the property outlined in green. This includes an aerial map and a zoning map showing the property as RA. Additionally, we have a future land use map showing the flume as low-density suburban, which supports the applicant's rezoning request. The map on the screen illustrates R3 subdivisions in the area, and the chart details the characteristics of the existing developments. The applicant is requesting to rezone 59.06 plus or minus acres from RA, Residential Agricultural, to R3, Single Family Residence, for the purpose of a conservation subdivision. Conservation subdivisions are allowed with an approved conditional use in any single-family residential or mixed-use zoning district. The lots are allowed to be as small as 10,890 square feet with a minimum of 40% of the area preserved for open space, if conditional use is approved. The smaller lot sizes allow conservation of more green space. The future land use map designation for the subject property is low-density suburban and would support a density of up to 2.0 dwelling units per acre net. As presented, the development has a net density of 1.75. The yield plan, which displays a traditional layout of the subdivision without conservation standards of this proposed development, will consist of 87 lots designed as a conventional R3 subdivision with a net density of 1.75 dwelling units per acre net. The conservation layout shows the same number of lots, but arranged in such a way that a minimum of 47.2% of the area of this subdivision would remain in conservation. Additionally, for the development to meet the two access requirement, they will tie into the Southern Hills subdivision. The development team has not identified a builder at this time. However, staff will have architectural review control per zoning condition, and conservations regarding architectural style will continue to progress between the Board of Commissioners meeting. As with all zoning requests, we did conduct a pre-review meeting with development departments such as Fire, the Water Authority, Building, SPLOST, DOT, as well as the school board. On the screen, we have comments from these departments. After evaluating the request, staff recommends approval of the applicant's request of a conditional use for a conservation subdivision, as well as approval of the requested rezoning from RA residential agricultural to R3 single-family residence with 17 conditions shown on the screen. With one correction to condition 12, which I will read for the record. There shall be a 30-foot undisturbed or enhanced landscape buffer along Pullen Road, and the south property line not be made a portion of the building lots. If developed as a conservation subdivision, the required buffer shall meet the standards of Chapter 6, Section 6.02.01 of the ULDC. The buffer shall be subject to approval from the Henry County Building and Plan Review Department and the Planning and Zoning Department prior to the issuance of a land disturbance permit. I'm happy to take any questions at this time.
Does the board have questions for staff? Okay, if not, I'd like the applicant to come forward. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening again. For the last time, Steve Moore, Moore-Bass Consulting, 1350 Keys Ferry Court, McDonough, Georgia, representing Mr. James Strata, who is the owner of the property at 55 Pullen Road. Again, a great presentation, very thorough, 59 acres, located off Pullen Road, east of Simpson Mill Road. Thank you. So as you can see there, so Southern Hills subdivision, which is currently under construction to the south side, has a stub street that I suppose the county probably in their infinite wisdom required planning and zoning, which makes good planning practices to stub out access to other properties to be able to create kind of thoroughfare connectivity, which is from a planning standpoint is always a plus. And so that creates the opportunity for this project to develop and to create that roadway connection. This is a future land use map that shows compatibility with those surrounding areas. As you can see, almost entirely surrounded by medium density to the south, up to 40 units to the acre, which is what it allows. We're proposing less than that because we're low-density residential, but further, we're also located in the limited development area of the Henry County Watershed Protection District. That watershed ordinance further limits the densities lower than 2 units to the acre to 1.75 units per acre, and so we have met that requirement as well. This is an aerial photo that shows the existing vegetation on the site, very heavily wooded, as part of our conservation approach that we've taken with this, which I am a fan of in the Henry County ordinance, and I think it does great things to protect and preserve properties, especially when you're in a watershed protection area. So we will be taking advantage of and preserving those trees as much as possible, and I'll show you that shortly. This is the yield plan. Again, it's a capacity study. It's based on R3. It's based on the zoning that surrounds us predominantly on the south and west sides. And these lots are 18,000 square foot in 100-foot minimum width. And this is the plan that we want to do. And again, you can see the dark green areas on that north-south leg that connects to Pullen Road that largely would be preserved, and this large boulevard-style roadway that I think is just going to create an incredible drive drive into this community. I mean, with no driveways on it, it's just going to be a very aesthetically pleasing access drive into this community. So this is some kind of a rendering of what that entrance would look like, both in the signage, hardscape, landscape, with that existing median area being protected and being preserved and incorporated into this significant landscape feature. So I just wanted to make sure that I kind of highlighted that. I think it's very unique to Henry County and different than what we've seen. Lost it again. So as I was mentioning, the 87 lots that were shown on the yield plan, that's the same number of lots that we're proposing on the conservation plan. We are proposing for this conservation subdivision, these lots to be, to follow the minimum that is allowed in the conservation ordinance, was 60-foot wide, quarter-acre lots, 10,890 square feet. And just one thing to note, I think, because of the fact that this is in the watershed protection area, just real quick, the Henry County Water Authority has an ordinance that basically requires you to have a minimum of 18,000 square foot lots. We were able to negotiate and work with the Water Authority to get a variance to allow these lots to be the size that they are in exchange for the amount of open space that we're proposing. And the justification, and I think it makes perfect sense, is that when you have a property that is in a watershed protection area, that means that everything that comes from this property is ultimately draining to a reservoir. And so what better way to filter stormwater and drainage than to have all of these buffers and open space areas for that water to filter through. The alternative is that you have lots that look like this, and somebody's got a quarter of an acre or a third of an acre or maybe even a half of an acre on some of those lots, and they're fertilizing the front yard and their backyard, and they got a ginormous driveway with 5 cars in the front yard, all of those things that, you know, are not necessarily environmentally friendly when you're in a watershed protection area. And so this was, I think, viewed, I don't want to put any words in the Water Authority's mouth, but the fact that they gave us a variance, and I think it's the first one that anyone's gotten, I think makes sense and speaks to the validity and the approach that we're taking, that it is the right approach for this area. So I just wanted to make that one connection there. As part of the conservation ordinance, there's a minimum of 100-foot buffer off of Pullen Road. As you can see, we have like a 1,000-foot buffer off of Pullen Road. There's also 50-foot buffers around the perimeter of the project and 40% open space, which we clearly have met with the 47% that we're proposing in this project, about 28 acres of open space areas. There is a small amenity area that is located in the very center of the property that would contain the central mail kiosk, as well as a pavilion and play area and open area for recreation. All of the lots in this community back up to open space. Every single lot touches open space. I think it's a very positive attribute for the development. And again, as was mentioned in the presentation, there is no builder selected. This is kind of like an old school where the property owner would come in and just want to get his land use changed or zoning changed. That used to happen. That used to always be the way it was. Now it's all, you know, builders and developers, and they're one and the same, and they come in and they've got the exact portfolio of what they're building. Mr. Strata has owned this property for a long time, and he just wants to change the zoning so that he can have the opportunity to market to a developer. And so we've done our best to assemble plans that we feel are compatible and consistent with what's being built around us and what has been built around us. And so that's what these are intended to represent. And we are perfectly fine turning over the authority to staff to be the final ultimate reviewer and approver of those elevations once there is a developer and once there is a builder selected. Again, all the stuff that I just talked about with the conservation subdivision, it feels like it doesn't feel like I truly believe it is the right approach for this property as a development tract. The property has access to sewer. It has access to public water. It meets the requirements for 2 accesses. Provides I think a really good alternative transportation route from Southern Hills to allow them the ability to get to Pullen Road and then ultimately to get to Simpson Mill. We've read through the conditions. We're perfectly fine with those. And at this point, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Okay, thank you. Does the board have questions for the applicant?
Just, general question, Steve. What are the proposed price points for this area is approved?
Again, with no builder picked out, it's hard to commit. I would say, and I'm not going to mid-threes and up, yes, I would say starting in the mid-threes. I mean, anything these days, right? I mean, it's, when you're talking about a builder's cost at $110 a square foot, and then they still have to make money and sell it to somebody, you know that these houses will be in those 300 easy.
Very well, thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions for the applicant? Okay. Now you may be seated, sir. All right, we have 13 minutes, 6 seconds. Anyone wishing to speak in favor? I don't see anyone coming forward. We'd like to allot 20 minutes for anyone wishing to speak in opposition. We have a total of 20 minutes for anyone wishing to speak in opposition.
Good evening, I'm Jasmine Bruno. I live in Kensington Point, which is on the backside of where they want to do this development. I've been there for 21 years, and it has gotten greatly, with so much traffic that it's unbearable, especially on 20. However, on West Ridge, where they have all the industrial buildings, trucks, going either side to Highway 20, as well as the opposite way south on Highway 155, where they have the other development that was approved earlier, which has a 1 lane in and 1 lane out. And I am one of those semi-truck drivers that is stuck on that roadway. So with this being a new development, not just my home, my job as well is affected, as well as the schools that my grandchildren go to, which is Locust Grove, Luella Middle School, and Luella Elementary. All of this is turning out to be more so, I guess, over time, the development has gotten so bad that not only is the residential area so much more so, it's also the traffic, it's also the schooling. So I don't know what kind of buffer they would have on the Kensington Point side, but we would like to see, and I don't even see that there would be the Southern Hills part under construction. How will that work? I just don't see how it will work in the future. Doesn't know how long this might take at all. Doesn't say if it's 2 years, 3 years. I understand you don't have a builder just yet, but it looks like this is an ongoing, maybe you guys already decided. I don't know, but from now, it just looks like it's hectic, and it'll be even more hectic in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. We have 17 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm Denise Carter. I live at 436 Simpson Mill Road, and I also own the property adjoining this proposed rezoning at 435 Simpson Mill Road. This plan is not consistent with the other lots on this road. I mean, if you look at every piece of property up and down Pullen Road, until you get on the other side of the creek and all the way around to the curve where they have put in the warehouses and the one subdivision down there, everything else is 1 or more acres per lot. There is no other development area in this entire area right here that's large enough for something like this. This is the only piece of property besides my own that I have no intention of developing, but that is even a potential for something like this. Everything else is individually owned and is already split up into lot sizes that would not allow for a new subdivision. You know, the low density, to me, a half acre to an acre lot, by the time you add in all of this, these buffers mean nothing. And that's something that really bothers me, because I do own the property adjoining Kensington Point. And that was supposed to have buffers. Except that if you look at the actual aerial photo of this, if you were to scroll over to that side, you can see where the people who have bought the lots have clear cut it all the way to my fence. So these buffers that they're proposing, they don't mean anything. Nobody's making them stay out of that. That Pullen Road itself is a narrow road. It is 2 lanes. You're going to feed either into Simpson Mill Road or to West Ridge Parkway, where they're going directly into all the semi-trucks on that end of it for West Ridge, or you're turning onto Simpson Mill, which is already a major traffic problem. It takes me forever to get out of my driveway. Where I'm located, I constantly have to worry about whether when I start out that somebody's going to plow over me, because when you come out of that drive, people are flying up that road. And that's going to add, potentially, you're looking at, 175 plus cars that are going to be flowing through both ways. You don't want them all going through, because you're looking at how many kids that are going to be in this subdivision that are going to be going to the Luella schools, which are already having problems as it is. But those schools, do you think that Southern Hills wants 175 cars going down through there to get to the schools every morning? Because most of those kids are not riding the buses. I mean, if you go through the lines at the schools in the afternoons, you can see how many cars are out there. And there's a reason for that. That's not part of planning and zoning's problem. That's Board of Education. But the other part of it, actually, that was it, because, again, I stand by the point that there is no other development on this road. It is not consistent with what's there, and they have no plan. They're putting this out there with no idea of what they're actually going to build. And at any point, once it's rezoned and this conditional use is put in, they can still change it. And that's putting stuff out there for those of us who live in the area that it's just not compatible, and we have no way of knowing what they're actually trying to do.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Julie Donaldson. I live on 710 Pullen Road, and I walk my dog up and down Pullen Road almost every day. And with the rendering that showed, I'm very concerned. There's no sidewalks on Pullen Road. There's the street and then the ditch. And with that extra traffic, with what's going on, again, my neighbor mentioned that Pullen Road is a very low density, at least an acre or more on Pullen Road. And with the proposed of this many houses on a 1/4 acre within a watershed area, I disapprove. I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record, sir.
How you doing? My name is Alfred Blockier. I'm at 535 Pullen Road. My concerns are where the green space is. I have a house almost up against the fence my driveway is, and it's not far away from that. So my concerns are that, and then as far as the water runoff, it impacts me now coming from Kensington subdivision. It comes through my property and it builds up every time it rains. So I didn't know if this would actually create more water runoff. And then be able to have bigger setback lines so I can not have to hear everybody's music every time they pull in and out of their vehicle or their vehicle out of their house. But, and then as far as the entranceway, I don't see how that can actually have 2 entrances at the front on Pullen Road, because there's not much width right there. But other than that, they told me that they would not have any kind of exit on Pullen Road. Now they do, so I was just concerned about that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Samantha Carter, 436 Simpson Mill Road. I'm very concerned about the schools, even though I know the Board of Education claims that they have approved it, and they claim that the Luella High School, middle school can carry this amount of kids. I already am a student at Luella High. We have issues getting through the hall as it is. We have no parking spots for our current students. And so adding this many more students to those schools would add extra time getting to the schools. You'd need more parking spaces at the schools, and you need more drop-off time for the kids who can't drive themselves. Not to mention the time getting to and from classes, and of course my teachers, because most of the teachers are already pulling double duty. So to be honest with you, I think the board is lying to you when they tell you that they can handle this. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have approximately 10 minutes. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Robert Carter. I live at 354 Simpsonville Road. That's actually my mother and sister that just got done speaking. I'd like to add to that, the day Kensington Point was built, within 6 months, we had a dog shot. We had cars breaking into him. A cousin that rents that field from us for his cattle had cattle killed indiscriminately. My concern is they build this, we're going to go through that all over again. And I'd rather not deal with it. And that's really all I got to add to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have roughly 9.5 minutes. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? I don't see anyone coming forward. Does the board have additional questions for staff or the applicant? Okay, call the case, please, or cases.
RZ-24-11, James Strata of Jackson, Georgia, requests the rezoning from RA, residential agricultural, to R3, single-family residence for property located at 555 Glen Road in land lots 240, 241, 256 of the 6th district. The property consists of 59.06 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a single-family residential subdivision, District 5, presented by Faith Akuta, Planner 1, and CU-24-01, James Strata of Jackson, Georgia, requests a conditional use for property located at 555 Pullen Road in land lots 240, 241, 256 of the 6th district. The property consists of 59.06 plus or minus acres, and the request is for a conservation subdivision, District 5, presented by Faith Akuta, Planner 1.
Okay, we've heard the cases. Do we have a motion for RZ 24-11?
Yes, I make a motion for RZ 24-11 to approve.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Okay, we have a second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Okay, motion carries unanimous. I'm sorry, three votes to 2. Okay.
As a quick point of clarification, did that motion include staff recommended conditions?
Yes, I apologize. Yes, it does.
Okay. All right. We've heard CU 24-01. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion to approve CU-2401 with any condition that staff has proposed.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. That concludes our cases for tonight.
Staff would like to make one quick announcement. We do have a call zoning advisory board meeting scheduled for August 8th in this room at 6:30 p.m. That, of course, is Thursday, August 8th.
Okay, thank you. Have a zoning advisory board meeting, August 8th, 2024. Thank you. This meeting is now adjourned.